Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Around the Nation right here, TYT Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. Got a great show for you guys today, playing a lot of stuff. We're going to talk about the Pennsylvania election, of course, and including the incredible spin that we're seeing on that. That is just amazing. You're going to love that story. And then, of course, we have Republicans in a panic, Trump's Space Force. We'll talk about the CIA directors, or the CIA director picks war crimes, Ben Carson. We got all sorts of stuff. The replacement to Gary Cohn. That'll irritate you, of course. All this stuff. So we've got a lot of stuff on today's show. So stay here for the next hour, and please make sure to like and share. Before I get into the show, by the way, and that's one of the biggest ways that you can help me right now, is to like and share, because right now independent media is being deranked by the YouTube algorithm in favor of more establishment sources. So more likes, more shares, more engagement, that'll help us try to get around that. But all the different channels, independent media channels, have been hit by this. So look, man, if you're somebody who enjoys the show and doesn't regularly visit our YouTube page and just waits for notifications for videos, well, you're going to be disappointed because there's a lot of notifications that no longer get sent out. So those, excuse me, the way to get around that is go to our YouTube page and just come back to it. There's new clips every day, so check that out. Okay. Yes, I have a little bit of a throat condition going on here today, so that's going to be a lot of fun. But nonetheless, we got a great show for you guys today. Weirdly enough, I am looking for a certain specific story I want to start out with, and I can't seem to find it here in my pile of stuff, which is great. Oh, I've got a... I don't think I have it here. That's fucking weird. Oh, here we go. I'm out of order today. All right. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to start out with the purge. So Andrew McCabe is the FBI deputy director, and he is set to resign, actually very, very soon. Now, if you think Donald Trump is just going to let him go without going after him, well, you are wrong. Turns out, of course, if you've been following the news, Andrew McCabe and Donald Trump have not exactly been getting along. Look, McCabe's wife, for example, ran in Virginia and took money from like a pro-Hillary PAC or something like that. And there you go. That's bias. It's the deep state. McCabe, totally unfair. Totally unfair. His involvement in the Russia investigation, totally unfair. So we're going to come after him. Well, look, McCabe, as I said, he's set to resign. Well, Donald Trump says, no, you can't resign. You can't quit. We're thinking about firing you. Now, look, this gets a little bit more detailed because Donald Trump can't just fire him directly. But let me go to some of the details here from the New York Times. Now, Mr. McCabe, according to them, is ensnared in an internal review that includes an examination of his decision in 2016 to allow FBI officials to speak with reporters about an investigation into the Clinton Foundation. The Justice Department's Inspector General concluded that Mr. McCabe was not forthcoming during this review, according to people briefed on the matter. That yet-to-be-released report triggered an FBI disciplinary process that recommended his termination, leaving Jeff Sessions, head of the Justice Department, to either accept or reverse that decision. Fascinating. Now, that report from the Inspector General is, the Inspector General is Michael Horowitz, right? And he has not released that report yet. However, he's been looking into several decisions made at the FBI and Justice Department during the 2016 presidential campaign. Now, does it have anything to do with whether or not Russia meddled in our elections or not? Well, let me tell you. In November, Mr. Horowitz indicated that he planned to issue a single report this spring encompassing his entire review on matters including the FBI's investigation of Hillary Clinton's use of a private email server. Just to show you exactly where Mr. Horowitz stands on issues. Now, we're not going to look into Russia at all. We're just going to look into Hillary's server. Am I doing a good enough job, Mr. Trump? And, of course, they want to use that report that is forthcoming to say, oh, look at McCabe. See, he was on their side all along. He's on the side of Hillary Clinton. He's on the side of the deep state to come after me. So, therefore, I'm going to put it in Sessions' hands and see whether or not he decides to get rid of McCabe. Now, why does it matter? McCabe has already said he was going to resign. Why fire him? Well, that's another piece of this strike back, if you will. See, McCabe would be unable to get retirement benefits from his job at the FBI if he is discharged, if he is fired. Oops. Now, look, what they're saying is, the reason that they're saying this, the official, I guess, reason is, well, he wasn't forthcoming during this whole thing. Now, it turns out lack of candor is a fireable offense. However, Mr. McCabe's fate is also entangled in presidential politics and in the special counsel investigation. He was involved from the beginning in the investigation into the Trump campaign's ties to Russia. He is also a potential witness in the inquiry into whether Mr. Trump tried to obstruct justice. So, okay, here's what I get from this, right? Obviously, it seems to me like an act of, oh, see, look at McCabe. We're going to come after you because you are part of that investigation, the investigation that I do not like. I desperately want to get rid of this investigation, and I want to punish anybody who took any part in this investigation. And Andrew McCabe, he's the guy. So, yeah, you can't quit. You're fired. I'm going to deny you your retirement benefits. How low can you go? How low can you go? But the other part of this, the other part that I find really interesting that I don't think a lot of people have hit on is the fact that Sessions is now the final arbiter of McCabe's dismissal. This is Trump saying, hey, Sessions, you fucked me over once before. I'm giving you another chance. Get rid of McCabe. Fire him. Punish my political enemies. And then maybe all will be forgiven. Look, that's my read of it. And so, look, whatever Mr. Sessions comes up with, Jeff Sessions, we'll see what happens. That's going to be very interesting and full of lots of drama. But, of course, that's exactly what you expect from the Trump White House. Okay. Fascinating. Okay. Let's go to Connor Lamb. So last night there was a special election in Pennsylvania's 18th district. Now this seat belonged to Tim Murphy. He had to step down because of some certain sexual allegations that had happened. I'm not going to go into that. Now, Pennsylvania 18th is really, really conservative. They went for Donald Trump by at least 20 points and was classified as Republican plus 11. That means any Republican had a inbound advantage of at least 11 points. And yet, what happened last night? Rick Saccone lost. Now, barely. Keep in mind, they're within 700 votes of each other, and there's still a trickle of some absentee ballots coming in. But so far, Connor Lamb is the winner. Connor Lamb is a Democrat, and a fairly moderate one at that. I'll get to the spin on that later. But this win in something that was in a place that was Republican, that voted Republican for at least the last decade, that was solidly red and conservative. Now in play, this has set the Republicans on fire. In fact, there was a Republican strategist who talked with Business Insider, And they said that Republicans need to be careful not to put any sort of rosy spin on the election, as he said that they would have been disastrous for the party even if Republican candidate Rick Saccone had pulled out a victory. Quote, "The narrow margin in a district the president won handily should be a serious wake-up call for Republican incumbents across the map. No suburban district is safe, and every candidate better be ready for the most difficult cycle of their career." Now, again, this is interesting because, look, the last couple of elections, the Democrats in this area, they're like, no, Democratic Party, we're not interested in running in this race. We're not interested at all. We know we can't win. But wait, now they decide, actually, you know what, we maybe have a shot because there is the most unpopular president basically in history. And so, look, hey, we're going to give it a shot. It seems to have paid off. Now, the GOP, another GOP strategist, told Business Insider that the law should serve as a wake-up call to everybody in the GOP. So, look, when you get into the politics of this is actually a huge upset. Again, I just showed you, or just told you, the advantages that Republicans had. This went for Trump by 20 points. Donald Trump himself went and stumped for Saccone. Saccone himself is like, I was Donald Trump before Donald Trump was around. I'm more Trumpy than Trump. And yet, here we go. Razor thin victory by the Democrat. Now, of course, the Republicans, Saccone is like, hey, man, I'm not conceding yet. No. I'm going to pull a Roy Moore, and I'm going to say, I'm not going to concede. Let's wait for a recount. Well, they don't have mandatory recounts, even though that's exactly what they're seeking. So, now let me get to some criticisms of Conor Lamb for a second. Now, Conor Lamb is no progressive. He's nobody's progressive. So, to me, his win is not a huge victory for the Democratic Party or for progressive politics. Yeah, it's a win for the Democratic Party, but not for progressive politics. So, I don't think... So, his win is less impressive than... Or less important to me than the politics. Then it's not really a win for Conor Lamb. This is a huge loss for Republicans. And so, that is very, very interesting. Now, personally, I expect another Doug Jones, right? Still, he is better than Saccone. Again, Saccone bragged about being Trump before Trump. And he's, like I said, he was a very, very right-wing nationalist conservative. Now, the real lesson here for this entire election is Republicans, watch out. Even your milquetoast, centrist corporate Democrats can win now in the era of Trump. Now, look, if we actually get progressives, this is the lesson that progressives can take. If we can get progressives running in this area, and if we turn out, well, look, this might end up being not just a blue wave. Because, look, a blue wave doesn't matter if all we get are centrist corporate Democrats. It's not going to mean much. But if we actually get out and vote for progressives and make sure progressives win their primaries, well, then you could turn that blue wave of centrist Democrats into a tsunami of progressives. And that's why you got to vote in the primaries. If we progressives can hijack and ride this wave with candidates that actually support us and not just serve their donors, we can actually win. And better than winning, we can actually have a voice in policy. Instead of letting the corporate Democrats and Republicans have their way. Elections matter. Get involved. Okay. So last night, Democrat Conor Lamb defeated Rick Saccone in Pennsylvania's 18th district. Now, this was a special election to replace Tim Murphy, who was a right-winger, very conservative Republican in a very conservative district. This district in 2016, for example, voted 20 points for Donald Trump. This was considered a safe Republican seat. In fact, any Republican incumbent would have a really good chance of winning this election. Unfortunately, for the Republicans, for Rick Saccone, that did not happen. Now, interestingly enough, here comes the spin cycle for this very, very contentious election, this gigantic upset by a centrist Democrat. Now, the brain trust over at Fox and Friends, they're going to try to explain away Saccone's loss, and then they're going to try to paint Connor Lamb as a Republican. Watch.
In Pennsylvania, where the special congressional election they held yesterday in the 18th district, too close to call.
A razor-thin margin separating those two candidates right there, but one is already declaring a victory.
Right. Let's go out to Eric Sean, because, Eric, this looked like a blowout for a while. Connor Lamb was in the driver's seat. It was just a matter of blowing up the balloons. And then what happened?
Oh, man. He was blowing up the balloons. He had a 6-point lead. What happened? What happened? He won. That's what happened. Oh, yeah, but he didn't win by that much. I mean, we expected him to really kick Rick Saccone's ass. And because he didn't, what happened? What happened? Oh, that's hilarious. Now, again, this was a huge upset, and here's Fox News and Fox and Friends saying, no, not that big of a deal. I mean, he was going to win anyway, even though Trump was there. In fact, they actually did mention how Donald Trump came and stumped for Rick Saccone, and we've got that clip. Let's take a look.
So it looks like President Trump probably closed the gap. Keep in mind, it was just last week. There was a poll out that Mr. Lamb was up by 6, and Donald Trump came in and his family, and it's a dead heat. But ultimately, keep in mind this as well, Mr. Lamb ran as a Republican. He's a Democrat running as a Republican. He said if he was elected to the Congress, he would not support Nancy Pelosi. He was for the president's border taxes and tariffs, and he stood with the Republicans essentially on issues like abortion.
But if he...
Okay, whoa. First off, on Trump, no, there was actually a CNN video where Saccone supporters, Republicans that are in the district, were like, no, Donald Trump is actually making it more likely for me to vote for Connor Lamb. Fascinating. And if you want to check out that video, you know what? We'll put it in the description because that's an interesting insight into how unpopular Donald Trump actually is, even in that area. But furthermore, see, Rick Saccone, he ran as a Republican. So it was a Republican versus a Republican. I would disagree. Now, look, I'm not saying Connor Lamb is some firebrand Bernie Sanders progressive. No, in fact, he rightly gets criticized for not being in favor of single payer or a living wage. But to say he was for Donald Trump's tax cuts, well, that's a pure 100% fabricated bullshit lie. No, he was actually against the Trump tax cuts. He said they were a giveaway to the wealthy. Not only that, but he's not pro-life, right? No, he's like, pro-choice. I'm not going to really, wade into this debate. Okay. All that stuff. I mean, come on. Come on. He is a centrist Democrat, not a progressive, and certainly not a Republican. This spin cycle is super, super ridiculous. And look, Paul Ryan is doing essentially the same thing. Oh, look at he's pro-gun. No, not necessarily. I'll have to get into some of his issues about being pro-gun, but he's, again, certainly not a conservative Republican. It's insanity. But look, I wish Connor Lamb was actually conservative, or was actually not I wish Connor Lamb was actually progressive. Okay, half as progressive as some people wanted to paint him, but he's not. And he's not conservative like Fox News tried to paint him. He is, again, a centrist. And so the reason that I think Lamb won is because, again, he wasn't a Trump conservative. He wasn't a Trump Republican. But he also, look, wasn't... the reason that he won by such a short margin, a sliver, is because he wasn't populist either. He would have actually won a lot more in that area if he were more populist. Again, Trump did win because he was populist in this area. So now look, the establishment, of course, on the Democratic side is going to use this to bolster the argument that centrism and that you go to the right win. If you go to the right, you win. Well, that's exactly the thing that they're using on Fox News. Well, he was a Republican. He went to the right. Obviously, that was really popular in this area. And so that's why he won. No, I think if Lamb had been actually progressive, he would have actually won by a larger margin. But make no mistake, the reason that they're using this spin is that they are scared of progressive Democrats. They are scared of progressives, and they are scared of the progressive wave. And believe me, it is coming. Okay. I need to take a quick break here. We'll be back. We got more show. Stay right here. Around the Nation. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here at TYT Nation. If you haven't already, please give us a like and a share. Helps us out greatly. All right. Let's get into the next story here. Space Force. This is great. Donald Trump wants to create a Space Force. Watch.
Space is a war-fighting domain, just like the land, air, and sea. We may even have a Space Force. We'll develop another one. Space Force. We have the Air Force, we'll have the Space Force. We have the Army, the Navy. You know, I was saying it the other day because we're doing a tremendous amount of work in space. I said, maybe we need a new force. We'll call it the Space Force. And I was not really serious. And then I said, what a great idea. Maybe we'll have to do that. So think of that. Space Force, because we're spending a lot and we have a lot of private money coming in. Tremendous. You saw what happened the other day, and tremendous success. From the very beginning, many of our astronauts have been soldiers and sailors, airmen, Coast Guardsmen, and Marines. And our service members will be vital to ensuring America continues to lead the way into the stars. We're going to lead the way in space. We're way, way behind, and we're catching up fast. So fast that nobody even believes it.
So fast. Nobody can even believe how fast we're catching up. Okay. hey man, look, space is a warfighting domain. Just like the land, air, and the sea. With this big ocean water. Big, beautiful ocean water. Look, our president's a moron. Hey guys, we need a space force because we're spending a lot of money. But wait, wouldn't that be the opposite? Because we'd have to spend money for a space force? And look, I thought space was supposed to be demilitarized. I think we all made an agreement. Well, different countries made an agreement that we're not actually supposed to weaponize space. But no, of course, Donald Trump does not care about that. Doesn't understand. He's like, oh, Space Force sounds really cool. I mean, it started out as a joke, but it turns out once I joked about it, I thought it was a really great idea. And now it's totally serious, and we might actually do that. Our president's a child. Sad. Okay. Yeah, you know what? I forgot to play this.
I want to go to space. I want to see interdimensional travel.
It's true. It's true. But if he goes, he might run into things that, well...
It's not human intelligence!
He might run into that. Or...
It is an alien force, not of this world.
I don't know. Who knows? Who knows? Oh, Jesus, he's an idiot. Somebody help us. Okay. Now we'll move on. Just something small. Okay. So Gina Haspel is Donald Trump's pick for CIA director. Now, that she is replacing Mike Pompeo, of course, who will be at the Secretary of State and replace the now fired Rex Tillerson. Now, Haspel, her name has come up before, but has now come to the forefront because she appears to have a bit of a sketchy history. Now, this is according to Colin Combacker, writing for Law and Crime. Her history is, prior to her appointment as CIA Deputy Director, Haspel ran a secret CIA prison in Thailand, used to house, question, and allegedly torture detainees during the Bush administration. From 2002 to 2005, Haspel was an active participant in the CIA's Extraordinary Renditions program. Now, extraordinary renditions, it sounds like, oh, you know, something serious. No, what they're doing is they basically could go and kidnap you. They could kidnap you or drag you from your home and take you to prisons, oftentimes in Eastern Europe, other times in different places, where then they could go and torture you. Because the government there, of course, is like, oh yeah, no, go ahead and operate your black site here so that you can torture these people. Well, isn't that wonderful? So that's what she did. And of course, they would, when they did this illegal kidnapping and torture program, they would do it at a black site. A series of off-the-books prisons where CIA agents and assets regularly allegedly tortured detainees over the course of several years. Now, Haspel was in charge of the CIA's Cat's Eye, which is a secret prison located in Thailand. Now, while she was there, she oversaw the daily torture of detainees, and according to media accounts and the memoirs of former CIA personnel, Haspel was personally involved in the torture of one Zain al-Abidin Muhammad Hassan, also known as Abu Zabudaya. Now, what's really important is that while this Abu Zabudaya is being tortured, and yes, I use the word tortured because that's exactly what happened. How else do you explain the consistent waterboarding or somebody having their head slammed into the wall repeatedly and being put in a coffin-sized box? Look, in some of the methods that were revealed, they would have people essentially go and dig their own graves. Now, look, some people will defend this saying, well, look, they're terrorists, and besides, it works. We're getting actionable intelligence. No, we didn't get any actionable intelligence. To be honest, torture does not work. The only the only reason that we employ it is actually to find out what answers that we actually want to find, that we want to hear. And one of the detainees actually figured it out. And this is the guy. And he says, well, they kept torturing me until I told them exactly what they wanted to hear, which is, in this case, well, Iraq worked with, Saddam Hussein worked with Al-Qaeda to perpetrate 9/11. That's what they wanted to hear so they could, of course, justify the invasion of Iraq. Now, in July of 2012, Haspel sent the following cable regarding Zubadeh's eventual torture. They said, team is ready to move to the next phase of interrogations immediately upon receipt of approvals authorization from ALEC headquarters. It is our understanding that the DOJ Attorney General approvals for all portions of the next phase, including the water board, have been secured, but that the final approval is in the hands of policymakers. Of course, as I said before, Zubaydah was waterboarded at least 83 times. 83 times. Haspel allegedly, while she was there, oversaw the two psychologists, Mitchell and Bruce Jessen. These two men were the designers of the torture techniques and who actually carried out the torture on prisoners, according to CIA whistleblower John Kiriakou, who was then prosecuted by the Obama administration for leaking classified information about the CIA's torture program. So look, the torture program is not a Republican thing. It's not a Democratic thing. It is bipartisan. Both parties are okay with torture. And that was evidenced in President Obama saying, oh, no, we only look forward, not backwards. So that's the only reason why Gina Haspel and anybody involved in the torture program is not in prison right now. She is a literal war criminal. And not only that, but she also tried to destroy the documents. You know, she destroyed the documents that showed the torture. She should absolutely be in prison. Again, torture is illegal, not only in other countries or through international pacts, but it's also torture. It's also illegal under U.S. law. But of course, as I said, Obama announced blanket immunity for any and all officials engaged in the Bush administration's torture program. She's not a good person. She's a terrible person. And as I said before, she does not belong as head of the CIA. She belongs in a prison cell. Now, there is a group of people, of countries, that actually want to put her there. On June 6, 2017, the European Center for Constitutional and Human Rights initiated a request for legal action against Haspel by filing an intervention with the German Federal Public Prosecutor, the foremost law enforcement authority in the Federal Republic of Germany. This office is held by Attorney General Peter Frank. So here's a group, a human rights group, petitioning Germany to say, this woman is a war criminal. And if she comes to Germany, if she comes to Europe, then we should arrest her for war crimes. Awesome. Now, ECCHR's legal intervention was made by way of the six-page document titled CIA Torture, Submission on Gina Haspel to German Federal Prosecutor. Immediately after ECCHR submitted the request, Frank's office confirmed that this request was received and is being formally reviewed. Now, the request, of course, is based on a violation of the Human Rights Article 3, which prohibits torture and inhumane or degrading treatment or punishment. Well, that's exactly what happened. Again, making people dig their own graves, waterboarding 83 times. And by the way, you shouldn't have to waterboard somebody 83 times to get the answer. No, they're not looking for the answer. They're looking for a specific leading question, right? That's what they're doing. They ask leading questions to try to get a specific answer. And the answer, of course, in this case, as I said before, is that, well, Saddam helped 9/11, worked with Al-Qaeda, which wasn't true. It wasn't true. It wasn't true. Saddam Hussein had nothing to do with 9/11. But again, we use this as a justification to invade Iraq. More wars for oil, right? Now, in a statement, ECCHR's General Secretary Wolfgang Kalek said, Those who commit or allow torture should be brought before a court. This is especially true for senior officials from powerful nations. The prosecutor must, under the principle of universal jurisdiction, open investigation, secure evidence, and seek an arrest warrant. If the deputy director travels to Germany or Europe, she must be arrested. So, look, if this, if this actually goes through and gets passed, and if she gets confirmed by the Senate, we would have a CIA director that it cannot officially travel to Europe or Germany. Well, which I understand Germany is inside of Europe, but Europe as a whole. That's amazing. Oh, it's so disastrous. And this is fear of arrest for being a torturer. Again, she should not be in this position. She should have never been in this position. She should be in a jail cell. And look, hopefully she does not get confirmed. I do not have much hope. I mean, I'm seeing Chuck Schumer talking about this, and I'm seeing Pelosi being absolutely fine with this. This is not good. So that could be our next CIA director. I thought Donald Trump chose all the best people. Well, we see how that turned out. Okay. Yeah, we'll go with this one. So there's a new update on the story about Ben Carson and his brand new furniture set that cost over $31,000. Now, look, to put that in context for just a minute here, $30,000 is a $15 minimum wage. So you have people out there saying, oh my God, $15 minimum wage, too much, it's too expensive. Well, those same kinds of people are defending Ben Carson for spending more than that on furniture. Just saying. Now, that's not the update. We'll get to that. Now, last month, HUD spokesman Rafi Williams told CNN that Carson and his wife had no awareness that the table was being purchased. In fact, Carson said, "Oh, I didn't know that this was so expensive. In fact, I had some sticker shock. I am shocked at the cost of that furniture. Let's return it immediately. Okay, we're gonna cancel that order. I had no idea this is so expensive, so I'm gonna go and find something cheaper." Right? In fact, he said, "I was as surprised as anyone to find out that a $31,000 dining set had been ordered. I have requested that the order be canceled. We'll find another solution for the furniture replacement." He added that he might choose a different dining room set, but that his preference would be a, quote, more reasonable price tag. So now here's the update. According to emails obtained by CNN, the Carsons were being a little less than truthful. Oops. Okay, now, I know, oh my God, a member of the Trump administration is being less than truthful. He's lying. No kidding. Really. I never. Now, the emails show that Housing and Urban Development Secretary Ben Carson and his wife chose the $31,000 furniture set for the Secretary's office themselves, despite the spokesperson's comments. In fact, an email sent to Carson's assistants last August reportedly cites printouts of the furniture the Secretary, Ms. Carson, picked out, and has a subject line that says, "Secretary's dining room set needed." CNN obtained the documents through a Freedom of Information Act request, which is great, because, hey, at least we can find out what exactly they're doing with our taxpayer money. Now, The network also reported that HUD's scheduling office in early August had written an email to Candy Carson, that's Ben Carson's wife, telling her that there would be a designer in town to look at possibly redecorating the secretary's office and bringing in new furniture. The schedule asked Carson if she would be available to come in and give her input on the redecoration. The schedule said that the order for the new furniture needed to be in by a certain deadline in order to use the money allocated for this fiscal year. Now, the furniture was quoted at being $24,666, and that quote was sent to Ben Carson's chief of staff and his executive assistant. Receipts show the furniture cost nearly $7,000 more than what the quote said in August. So let's all pretend to be shocked that Republican politicians are wasting taxpayer money on themselves and on bullshit new office furniture or dining furniture. I mean, let's not forget about a $139,000 office door for Secretary. Sorry. Let's not forget the $139,000 office door for Secretary of Interior Ryan Zinke, or all the taxpayer flights, or all the money Donald Trump spends going to Mar-a-Lago every weekend to golf. Look, it's the corruption. Plain and simple. Look, these people are only in positions to either, to basically enrich themselves while also dismantling the agencies and perverting their missions. We see this all throughout the Trump administration, the cabinet. Everyone who's put there in an agency is destroying that agency. It's the corruption. Well, you thought Donald Trump was going to drain the swamp? No, my friends. He made the swamp bigger. Okay. Now we'll go to this one. Following the resignation of Gary Cohn as Donald Trump's chief economic advisor, Trump has chosen someone new to fill that position. This is Larry Kudlow. Now, for those of you who are like, who? Larry Kudlow is a CNBC contributor. And that actually plays into the story because, look, he goes on TV. He's on CNBC's Squawk Box all the time talking about, oh, my God, the stock market is fantastic. And, oh, everything that Donald Trump's doing with the stock market is great. Now, Trump suggested earlier that he would name Kudlow as Cohn's replacement, and that is official now. Now, what's interesting about Kudlow, right, is that, well, for one, let's go to what they have in common, because this is an interesting pick, to be sure. For one, he loves Trump's tax cuts. Is that a surprise? Of course. He loves trickle-down theory, of course. He's like, oh, yeah, no, if we give the rich more tax cuts, well, then it's going to trickle down to everybody else. It's going to make the economy grow. I'm not surprised that he has that. Now, on trade is where they actually have a difference. But that same difference they had with Gary Cohn as well. In fact, after Trump announced 25% tariffs on steel and 10% tariffs on aluminum, Kudlow, along with economist Arthur B. Laffer and economic analyst Stephen Moore, wrote an op-ed criticizing the president's position, saying that tariffs are really just tax hikes. Oh, well, that made him a little bit unpopular with the president, but of course, he kind of turned around on that. He said that the exemptions of Mexico and Canada made the tariff plan slightly more acceptable. Quote, "It's a Trumpian way of negotiating," Kudlow said of the tariff plan. "You knock them in the teeth, get their attention, and then you kind of work out a deal, and I think that's what he's done. My hat's off to him. He had me really worried. Now I'm not." Did I do good, Mr. Trump? I really want to be your economic advisor. So let me get to the reason why Trump picked Kudlow. And this is just absolutely Trumpian in its execution. According to Politico, Trump offered the job to Kudlow over the phone on Tuesday night while Kudlow was at dinner at the Cipriani restaurant in Manhattan. During the call, Trump said he was seeing Kudlow's photo on television and told him, quote, "You're looking handsome, Larry." He's on television. And he's on television defending Trump's tax cuts. And, of course, you just heard he sucked up to Donald Trump on the tariffs. Oh, yeah, no, I totally agree with you on the tariffs now. Great idea, Trump. Hats off. Hats off. This shows that all you have to do is to suck up to Trump. That's all. If you want a job in the White House, all you have to do is bend over and kiss the ring. That's exactly what Larry Kudlow is doing. Now, look, I think on policy, he is absolutely disastrous. Again, with the Trump tax cuts, which give 83% of the benefits going to the top 1%, it's going to be disastrous for the economy. And we've already seen, of course, a reduction in tax revenue. And again, most of that goes at the top, while it is, of course, for some people, a tax increase for the middle class. So that's the kind of policies that he's going to continue to champion. So look, I'm not surprised for the pick, and I'm not surprised at the reason. But this is our new economic advisor to the president. So we have that to look forward to. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. Let's go after the Democrats. Now, one of the big things that you hear from a lot of establishment pro-Hillary Democrats is how, oh, Russian bots. Oh, the Bernie Sanders bros. They're all working for Russia. They're Russian bots and they're Russian trolls. And that's the only reason why Bernie Sanders supporters didn't like Hillary Clinton, and that's why she lost. Well, look, maybe not the only reason. Of course, they're misogynist, they're sexist, they're the Bernie bros, and they hate Democrats. All they want to do is destroy the party, right? On and on and on, right? Now, look, while there is an issue with Russian bots and trolls, well, look, the Russians didn't create, the Russians aren't the only ones who created bots and spread fake news. The truth of it, actually, is that the same kind of tactics that some of these Democrats are decrying, they've also engaged in. Now, there is a excellent article in the Huffington Post from Paul Blumenthal. Now, he says that a top Democratic consultant was also caught with an army of divisive bot accounts. Yes, this is Sally Albright. Now, she is a Democratic Party communications consultant. She's obviously very, very pro-Hillary Clinton. She's against Donald Trump, obviously. She bills herself as a member of the resistance, of course, but she's also an incredibly divisive voice that always attacks Senator Bernie Sanders. Now, she, of course, goes on Twitter. She claims Bernie Sanders is he's a fraud, a liar, a racist, all that stuff. She even thought that free college, tuition-free education, is racist. Now, during one such Twitter tirade, you had Sanders supporters that pushed back. Now, in the course of an argument, one of the people noticed something interesting about some of the people who were following and retweeting Miss Albright. Now, this is Trevor. First name Trevor. There's no last name because he's afraid of actually being doxxed by Hillary Clinton supporters. Noticed a pattern of behavior when Albright responded to him. Her tweets addressing him were rapidly retweeted by the same set of accounts. This created a barrage of notifications, making it look as though there was an avalanche of opposition to everything he had said. But as Trevor discovered, after an extensive amount of research that he posted online, that these were not normal accounts. These were bots. Oh, say it ain't so. Again, the same people, or the same group of people, who accuse Bernie Sanders supporters of being Russian trolls and Russian bots, they happen to have an army of bots and trolls. Let me get into more details here. Now, first, Albright responds to this. She says, those accounts, no, they were voluntarily handed over by their original users to an unnamed client of hers to be automated in an analytics program. She said that she was bound by an NDA and could not disclose who was collecting and automating these accounts or for what purpose. But just like Sally Albright, these accounts were all massively pro-Clinton, anti-Trump, and anti-Bernie Sanders. How convenient. So, you want to appear that there are so many people backing your argument? Well, you just get a bunch of bots to retweet you, and then look at me. Obviously, I have so much support in my anti-Sanders tirades. You know that Bernie Sanders is incredibly popular in the Democratic Party. He is the most popular politician in America. And yet, of course, through Twitter manipulations, through bots, you get the sense that so many Americans are against Bernie Sanders and his message. Now, again, that's all on purpose. Now, Twitter, of course, does allow users to automate their accounts, including setting up automatic retweeting and liking of other accounts. Presumably, Twitter did not anticipate that users would simply hand over their accounts to another person or campaign to artificially spread the latter's tweets. Now, automating Twitter accounts to retweet or otherwise promote specific messages, thus, according to Blumenthal, becomes a tactic to silence political debate and squelch free speech. And that is unfortunately what is happening with these bots. Now, over the course of last year, Albright was their favorite account to retweet, almost always as a group. The fake accounts also retweeted people who responded to Albright's tweets, again, usually as a group, and often while in a debate with other users. Now, it wasn't just Albright's account that they constantly retweeted and amplified. They also amplified pro-Democratic, pro-Clinton websites. One of them is Share Blue. Now, Share Blue, of course, supported Hillary Clinton in the primary, as well as the general election. Now, Share Blue was also frequently retweeted by the network of fake accounts, particularly when the Share Blue folks had something negative to say about Bernie Sanders. Now, these accounts also liked resistance celebrities, such as Eric Garland, and Harvard Law professor Lawrence Tribe, and they were often deployed in intra-Democratic Party battles. Now, look, you might be like, okay, but how do you know how did he know that they were actually fake? I mean, come on, this is a lot. Like, Sally Albright using fake accounts? No. Well, here's some examples, right? The account named for Iris Winter, which is temporarily suspended now, uses a picture of Spanish ice dancer Sarah Hurtado. Mini Cicera, which is another account, supposed picture comes from the Facebook account of Martina Painter, an Alaskan who died on January 11, 2017. The picture used by another follower, Georgia Miles, is actually Deja Ferrier Quignon, a New Jersey woman who was killed in September 2016 by a car involved in a police chase. Maggie Campbell's picture is one of Deb Salsrud, a Florida woman who died in a plane crash in December of 2016. Madeline Ware's photo is really Mary Knowlton, a retired librarian who was killed in August 2016 by a police officer in a practice drill. So a lot of these accounts have pictures of people who are dead. Now look, some people do obviously use different pictures of themselves on Twitter, or they don't use their own picture on Twitter, they use a picture of something else or somebody else. Okay, that's a fairly standard practice, for sure. Now, it is still kind of strange that some people would misrepresent themselves by taking other people's pictures. Not just celebrities, but people who had died, who have no say in the matter. Now, one account, Gwen Barstow, which is now temporarily restricted, likely because it used an image of Megan Delcourt, an Ottawa woman who was in the local news after her apartment balcony collapsed underneath her. There's another account, Cheryl Montgomery, that was also suspended in February after Catherine Simpson, a public relation professional in Vancouver, alerted Twitter that it was using her picture without consent. The theft of Simpson's photo to create this fake account was previously reported by the Canadian Global News. So, these accounts, they're taking pictures of people who are either dead or they just come in and steal your picture. And, goddamn. So they will come in and steal your picture and then tweet en masse, or retweet en masse, people who are pro-Hillary, pro-Democratic Party, anti-Bernie Sanders, and anti-Trump. That seems to be a little bit of a problem. That sounds a lot like what the Russians might have been doing with their troll farms, with the Internet Research Agency, those 13 Russians that were found. Now, Albright did admit to HuffPost that she handed over a number of accounts to that unnamed client that had been connected to previous projects of hers and that were no longer in use. She also said that she changed the pictures for some of them. Other accounts that Albright said she provided to her client's project included Propaganda Minister, Druid City Media, at Voter Protection, at Buck's Pocket, at Sally Ng, and at Social Capital. Each of these accounts was connected to a website domain that had been purchased by Albright. A screenshot of Albright's Buffer account that she tweeted showed accounts under her control, including some of her automated accounts in question. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar, Buffer is something that you can use to help you automate your tweets. It's a perfectly legitimate application. But in this case, as I said, Albright was using these fake accounts to amplify her message and to go and basically try to drown out debate. Now, these accounts retweet Albright and other accounts with similar messages at an extremely high rate. Each account has made tens of thousands of tweets, almost all of which are retweets, and they almost exclusively use Buffer. Now, in March 2017, Albright tweeted a complaint at Buffer about a problem she was having with a recent update. In one tweet in that conversation, she posted a screenshot of her Buffer account. That screenshot showed a number of profile pictures from Twitter accounts under her control. Among those were Propaganda Minister, Captain Waterfront, and Buck's Pocket, all accounts known to be linked to her. There were also profile pictures for accounts that Trevor had listed in this original expose of potentially fake accounts. Albright told Huffington Post that the screenshot was really old and that she no longer had access to those accounts. While it is still not known what organization was actually behind the accounts, most of them ceased operation when they were spotted by Trevor. So, look, you get your hand in the cookie jar and you get caught. Well, oops, time to delete. Let's get rid of it. You want to talk about bots and trolls. You want to talk about spreading propaganda. Well, there's your bots and trolls. And it's not just the Russians. It's people in the Democratic Party. And it's not just Sally Albright. You know, the person who came up with this idea in the first place, David Brock, who launched the original troll farm, spent $1 million on paid anti-Bernie Sanders trolls. Is it any surprise that members of Donut Twitter and the Democratic establishment that are so anti-Bernie Sanders would employ the same kind of tactics? Of course they would. They want to drown out the message. They want to deflect from the fact that Bernie Sanders and his policies, and I think that's the most important part, his policies are incredibly popular, and that he is incredibly popular, and that the Sanders wing of the Democratic Party, true progressives, are the future of the party. They can't stand that. So they will do whatever they have to do in order to try to stifle those voices and to give the appearance that they're the ones that are the populists. They're the ones that the Democratic Party actually represents. It ain't true. Okay. That's all I got for you guys today. Oh, shit. Thanks for going around the nation with me today. If you haven't already, please give us a like and a share. Please subscribe. Come back and check out our videos when we put them up online. Since we are getting some notification issues with our clips going up. So make sure to do that. Like, share, comment, etc. All right, everybody. I'm going to go drink some tea. I'm going to go feel better. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Love you. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, TYT Nation. We'll see you tomorrow.